In this demonstration, we're now going to take a look at quotas, cost analysis, and tag-in on our subscription. So let's head over to the Azure portal to begin. Okay, in the Azure portal, the very first thing to note is if we scroll down on the left-hand side, you'll see a section called Cost Analysis. Simply select that first. And on the right-hand side, you'll see here the option to go ahead and download a copy of this analysis, and it shows you below the total cost. Like, here's a summary, here's all the items. So you can see this is obviously a demo account, so there's only a few things in here that are generating cost. But on the right-hand side, you will note something called tags, and I can have up to 15 tags per resource or resource group in Azure, and tags allow us to really, drill down and identify and filter that bill more easily when I get it. But I can take this period of time and go ahead and download. So again, you can choose the time span, so past 30 days, current period, past 90 days, custom, period of time, but we'll just do, past 30 days for the moment. Hit apply. You can see the cost went up there because we're going 30 days back now. And now I'll go ahead and click download, and this will download an Excel or CSV file for me that I can then open up. And once it's opened up, you can see, in fact, I'll expand out some of these columns, and you'll see it'll list out the SKU, unique identifier that's being used, the SKU for specific virtual machines, any data transfer in and out that I might have used. But it's a pretty large, spreadsheet just of stuff that you've done and when you've done it, etc. So if I scroll back to the top and I scroll over to the right, one of the key things I can do is filter on tags. So you can see this particular machine has an owner, it's got its total cost there for that machine, and these are all the sub costs associated with it. But I might have other resources. If I scroll all the way down, here's another one with owner Nick Collier. Scrolling further down, but you can see here like Cloud Shell, is an owner of that one because that's something that's used for when we do PowerShell in Azure. But the biggest problem you might find is if you don't start tagging early on, you will get a lot of resources like a storage account here that perhaps I don't know who actually owns it or what they're doing with it. So it's very, very important to build a tagging structure very, very early for your resources. Well, in the subsequent module here, what you'll see is an artifact we've created, which is a tag in spreadsheet. And essentially, because you're only allowed up to 15 tags, if I scroll down in the sheet, we'll see we've listed up to 12 tags here with room for 3 more, but you can obviously repurpose these as much as you want. But these are some examples of what I see in the industry that people need. Some clear examples are technical tags like environment. Is this dev stage prod? Do I have a maintenance window for my virtual machines? Am I doing some automation based on expiration date or a time window associated with services I deploy? These are common ones. We've divided them up into technical tags, automation tags, business tags, and security tags as well for things like data classification and regulatory compliance. Another really good one is cost center. If you have a cost center, the way your organization is structured, everybody's different, but if you have cost centers there, having that ID is a really good one to have. Then you can decide, are these tags mandatory or optional? And if they're mandatory, you could certainly, put some policy around them, which you'll hear more about shortly. But if they're optional, you could say, okay, this is something, people can choose to enter or not to enter, up to them. Maybe some just optional description text, things like that. The next thing is to decide what format you want that tag in. Tags follow a key value pair situation by default. So you've got your tag name, and then the value, which could be a string or could be JSON as well. We do a lot of automation around tags sometimes. So a time window, for a server to be shut off and turned on could just be a large JSON syntax that you put in there. In addition, then decide things like who's responsible for it. Is it applied to the resource group? Is it applied to other resources? Again, you can apply tags to resource groups or individual resources wherever possible. If you've grouped everything together properly in a resource group, just assign it at the resource group. Don't go to the headache of tagging every individual nick and everything inside there. Ideally you can just tag everything at the resource group, but I realize that doesn't work for everyone. And then is there any automation via Azure policy to perhaps enforce the tag? So we give you the spreadsheet as part of the course. I would say first thing is just, get in a room with the people you need to, plan out your tagging strategy, and then that will help you immensely when it comes to getting your bill. So going back to the portal, here is, again, the tags, and you can kind of see them here. They would show up, when you kind of download that bill. If we scroll further down now, the other thing you need to be aware of is usage and quotas for the exam. And this is important because by default, when you create a new account, various things are limited. So, total regional vCPUs is limited, what type of vCPUs from which families you can deploy, how many virtual machines is your maximum. You got 10,000 there, but you'll be capped by the vCPUs. Now, if you want to increase any of these quotas, all you need to do is simply select Request Increase. And this will require you to put in a support ticket, and depending on your support level will determine the response you get to that. But you'll basically choose the subscription you want to increase, choose the quota type, so perhaps compute services, pretty common one. Choose your support plan, as I mentioned, basic support, and then just kind of type in your problem as you kind of go through. Yeah, so I can choose East US 2, SKU family. I can choose, okay, I want the A series as an example. And I can say, okay, my current limit is 10. I want a new limit of 20. I can save and continue. I don't need to upload a file with additional details, but I could if I wanted to. And then if there's severity, at the top, minimal impact, moderate, critical, will also determine how quickly Microsoft responds to that. On the next page, I'm not going to go any further than this, but you'll simply enter your contact details so they know who to contact. They'll send you an email, and you will converse with a support engineer from Microsoft to get the quota increased. So that's kind of usage and quotas for you there. Finally, the last thing to bring up here is naming standards as well, because we talked about tagging a lot. So let's take a look at another spreadsheet that we give you, which is naming standards. And this has, all the different categories like resource group, compute, storage, etc., and the different naming standards associated with them. So you can see like some of them have different length limitations. There's different patterns for actually filling them out that we recommend. So you might use like your company identifier, the region it's in, the environment, the team, the purpose. Really up to you how you come up with these patterns, but these are just examples for you. So you'll typically come up with your company identifier. You'll come up with like 3-letter acronyms for your server roles. So like some people use like SQL at the end for SQL, app, web, you decide, what you want to call it. And then you kind of whatever little, additional pieces you want to put there so that, every time somebody builds something, they're following, a standard naming convention there as well. And with that, that concludes this demonstration and should get you up and running with quotas, cost analysis, and tagging for the exam.